if past, present, and future are all now,
Right.
then it's all happening now.
JFK's not the only dude or person who shows up from history to kind of drop you a letter to humanity.
What if heaven is a frequency rather than a place? Mm-hmm. And so if they're in the next room and they're only a whisper away, then the vibrationship represents that we are continuing to move forward together.
This is a lesson that people listening can understand, is to open yourself up to the what ifs of the world.
Yes. The questions are more important than the answers. And I've spent a lifetime in a career that was about the answers. Mm-hmm. And I now make friends with the questions.
I'd like to welcome to the show Cheryl Page. How you doing, Cheryl?
I'm so excited to be here. I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and making your way down to Next Level Soul Studios. I'm excited. Our good friend Suzanne Giesman connected us, the great Suzanne Giesman.
Unbelievable.
And she connected us. And anytime Suzanne recommends someone to us, we take a different, a little bit closer look, faster look even, because we get inundated with requests, as you can imagine. And when I saw your story, I thought it was really interesting because you have a similar background as Suzanne, not in the military, but in a serious,
left brain dominant,
grounded world as a scientist. And then you turn woo-woo. And I and I say that because it's not an easy transition. Yeah. I'm sure you're still going through stuff. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I always am fascinated with the amount of courage it takes from someone who has a really established career as a scientist to then come out and literally say, I see a pink rabbit that keeps walking around like I'm talking to Harvey the rabbit.
Exactly. I call it a Galileo moment.
Yes. Yeah. So what is the Galileo moment?
Well, the Galileo moment is the church had a lot of power, and the church is saying, no, the sun is rotating around the earth. And Galileo has done his analysis and realizes, Houston, I think we have a problem. And he proposes a different hypothesis that we are actually orbiting the sun, and they want to kill him. They want to draw and quarter him, house arrest, because you're bucking, and that's another thing I know we've talked about, is this idea of absolute truth. Mm-hmm. If you look at all of human history as a linear progression, we had the absolute truth. Go forward 5 years, 25 years, 500 years, we have some new information, and yet we as humans tend to be very tenacious in our grip on what we already know. And that sort of closes doors to new understanding. So the Galileo moment for me is, there's something else possible here.
Yeah, what's interesting about human history in that sense, and humans, I've always said, when the Greeks were walking around with Zeus, I'm like, this is the way. When the sun god was, making his rounds or her rounds in Egypt, this is the way. Throughout history, no matter where we are in history, we've got it all figured out. It's hilarious to kind of look back and watch. Like, no, we got this.
But now people think it's the same now. We got it all figured out.
Every year that goes by,
now's the time.
And there's so many different fields that have such problems building upon what has come before, and they're like holding on to dogma in all aspects of it, whether it be religion or even science or even economics or in food and how we produce Name the space. It's all they're so rigid because systems are built around those ideas, and if you change those ideas, the system has to be redone, and that's why there's so much resistance until there's a breaking point where, like, you know what, the horse and buggy ain't gonna take us anywhere, guys. We got to this motorized buggy. The horseless carriage is the future. The horseless carriage is the future. I mean, they fought again. I remember, was it Rockefeller? He fought against gasoline or electric. Excuse me. No.
Yeah.
He fought against electricity, saying this is a fad. It's dangerous. You're going to burn your house down, and all this stuff, because his money was being made with whale oil.
Exactly.
And then it was whale oil, and then it was the cassarin. Oh God, the lamps. The lamps.
Oh,
oil.
yeah, kerosene.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Kerosene lamps. So he was big into kerosene. So he's like, I don't want this electric
He had an
stuff.
ulterior motive.
Correct. That seems to be the problem throughout history. Is a lot of that stuff. So I just hope that we continue open our minds a little bit. And that's what the show's about. It's like, what if?
Thank you.
What if this? What if the Earth revolves around the sun?
Yes.
What if the world is actually round?
Yes. Well, and I'm glad you brought it up, because if you looked in the introduction to my book, to me, I was raised up in and trained in my profession to sort of honor the Newtonian truth binary.
Obviously.
It's true or it's false. But quantum mechanics provides four-part logic, which is true, not true, both true and false, neither true and false. Right. So you got Schrodinger's cat, the cat's alive and dead in the box until you open the box. I call it the Christmas morning phenomenon, where I want the Molly What's-Herself doll. I come down and there's all the packages under the tree. She's in the box and not in the box until I open all the boxes. And yet if we don't, like for me, when Scott, my beloved, passed, which started this whole journey, walking into woo, I didn't have room for new information in the Newtonian truth binary. I needed a third option, something that's going to hold the space open. It's like, if you ever like to pry something open, but then you need to stick the wedge or something in there, like something to wedge it to keep me open. And what if became my wedge? It was the third option. I'm crazy? I'm not crazy. But both, if you think about true and not true, true and false, both of those are a full cup. There's no room for new information in either one of those poles. So what if became my strategy? What if I'm crazy? What if I'm not? What if Scott's here? What if he's not me? What if I can talk to him? What if I'm not? But the what if gave me the wiggle room to stay open-minded and keep walking towards him.
So tell us what what is your background? So everybody knows. We were talking like everybody knows. What is your background specifically?
So I was born. No,
yes, I was born a small child.
So fast forward to I was born and I grew up, and
sure.
I have worked in medical oncology as a clinical research coordinator for 23 years. So in various subspecialties, the lion's share of which was oncology. In 2021, when COVID happened, I transitioned. As I started to understand more, I had a harder time in the space where I feel like the fox is guarding the hen house a little bit with, sort of pharmaceutical medicine. So
stop it.
So transition to palliative care and hospice because it felt like a more honest space. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to die. If you're getting palliative care, that doesn't mean you're dying, but it's a space where typically we're walking people to that doorway between worlds.
Correct.
And there's a lot less lying in that space. So
right. There's no BS there, really.
Exactly.
There's no interpretation. There's no gray area.
That's right.
In that area, there is not a what if.
There's a binary.
It's very binary. The what if is what happens after.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. But on the way there, it's really either one or the other. It's that's the only two places you really can go. So you left oncology as a researcher, and now you're in palliative care. At what point when your beloved died, Scott, how did you transit? You're like yada, yada, yada. And then I'm woo. And I'm like, let's get through the yada, yada, yada for a second and say, okay, so what was the transitioning point? Because I'm fascinated to see how a scientific researcher who's very right brain.
No, left brain is,
left brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right brain. Very left brain turns into and opens herself up to the idea, also being a Catholic as well, or a former Catholic. A recovering Catholics, I like to call it. I had a friend of mine said, which was great, and I think I'm going to start using this instead of a reform. I joke, I'm a reformed Catholic.
Yeah.
It's a cafeteria Catholic.
Yeah, I'm an enhanced Catholic.
Right. So a cafeteria Catholic, you go in and you pick out what you want.
Oh,
and
that's
what
great.
Works,
I love that.
Works, and what works for you. Julie,
Totally.
She's a friend of ours. Julie Ryan said that. I was like,
I love that.
That's great. Isn't that great that you
That's
pick?
totally
because
great.
there's a lot of beauty in the Catholic religion.
Of course.
And as there is in every religion, because they all start from hopefully a good place.
Yeah.
So there is some beauty in it.
Yeah.
But then it just gets kind of mixed up with a lot of the dogma
Yeah.
that doesn't serve as much as it used to. But anyway, so from being someone who's a Catholic scientist, which that alone is a weird combination, by the way. How did you do that? But then jump into this. So what was that transition like after Scott passed?
So in a scientific space, if you have not double-blind placebo-controlled trial, we'll set that over here. If you have a mountain of what we would call anecdotal evidence, not proven, but just lived experience. If you have this mountain of anecdotal evidence, it's irresponsible to disregard that just because it's not proven with a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. So if you don't believe in ghosts, let's say, and they just keep walking in the room and talking to you, that's anecdotal evidence. You haven't proven it to the wider world.
Sure.
But I started to have so much lived experience of, what if Scott's here? What if he's not? And then things like you can't make it up. It's not, I was standing in a meadow and a butterfly landed on my arm. Not that that's great too, but it was the stuff where you can't make this stuff up. Like it is calculable, the things that were happening, and it happened again and again and again. It's one time and then 5 times and then 25 times and then 25,000 times. It's all anecdotal. I can't prove it to anybody else except if you had the near-death experience or, pick your experience, you would not, if they kidnapped you and the space aliens take you away and you had to deny that you sat here with me, it's your lived experience.
Correct.
So that was the transition was, and it's so important, Alex, the questions are more important than the answers. And I've spent a lifetime in a career that was about the answers. And I now make friends with the questions. Remember when we were kids, because I'm a little older than you, but
Same vintage. Similar vintage.
Exactly. But remember those images, those funny images of like a clown car with like the heads and the legs and the... I just have a clown car full of questions. And I make friends with them because here's the thing is, it's like even with people, and I'm sorry to go all over the map, but like someone might say, okay, Dad, in the spirit world, send me a unicorn, whatever the sign is. And it doesn't come. It doesn't mean it's not coming. It means you're not that good yet. Like Dr. Dispenza says, you're not there yet. So for me, I kept asking, make your presence known to me, Scott. Are you still here? And the things that began to happen, like I'll just give you an example. So, this is so unbelievable. So I would sleep with his T-shirt on my chest. And this was, 2 months after he passed away, 3 months after he passed away. And I would be talking to him as though he was here. And I would say something like I was living in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and they were doing construction on this bridge, and it was a pain in the butt. And so I'm lying there and saying, oh, God, this bridge is it's a nightmare. And then my phone would make the little twinkly sound. It's 11:30 at night, and I get the twinkly sound. And at that exact moment, someone texted me a picture of a bridge. And then, the next night I'm talking about, and I saw an eagle flying over the river. And then the phone makes a little twinkly sound, and someone sends me a picture of an eagle. And then I'm talking about the city of Aspen is placing that bench at the ball field for you, and twinkly sound, and someone send me a picture of a bench. Like it was uncanny. Like, okay, at some point you go, what's happening here? So some random person on Facebook who I don't know, because you know how you end up with random friends, he's the guy sending me all these pictures. And it happened like 10, 12, it just kept happening. So I finally reached out and said, could you call me? I need to understand, like something's happening. I'd like trying to not sound like a freak person, but anyway, can you call me? So the guy calls me. It takes us 10 minutes to figure out we were both in the same high school together or something.
Wow. That's how you guys connected.
Yeah, and I was a freshman. He was a senior. I didn't know him, but somehow.
Sure.
So I said, so here's this whole thing, and how is it that you're texting me these images when I'm... And he goes, look, I'm just some guy I live on the side of a mountain in my trailer, and I just knew I was supposed to send you an image, so I sent it to you. And so his name was David Drinker, and he said, I promise you, one, I don't know what this is, but I promise you if he keeps sending me, send her this, I'll keep sending it to you. So we became friends, and we'd talk once in a while, whatever, and it kept happening, right? And then all of a sudden, he was talking about, well, I'm sort of done with Facebook, and he disappeared. And I only found out a year later that he died the day before Scott's angelversary of his passing.
So he died before Scott?
Scott died 1 year later, minus 1 day, David Drinker died.
Wow.
Now, is it possible that when we get close to the veil, when we get close to our exit, because here's another thing, Scott was called Froggy because he used to live in France, right? Mm-hmm. So Scott died July 7th. It's now mid-August, and I'm past the police and the memorial service, and I'm driving from Carbondale, Colorado, over a mountain to this other place. And it's August, it's 9,000 degrees outside, and I'm a single woman, you don't pick up hitchhikers, right? But I'm driving along, and I don't really, at this point, know that Scott's there, except you kind of do. But you don't know. So I'm driving along, and I'm heading out of town, and there's a hitchhiker. And he's sort of clearly a homeless guy, but I just hear Scott in my mind go, he's not going to murder you. Pick him up. He's going to Penny Hot Springs, which is this little side of the road hot springs people go to. He's not going to murder you. Pick him up. So I pull over.
Cheryl.
So great.
Just disclaimer, don't do this.
But it's so great what happened. So I pick up this guy.
Yeah.
And he's a homeless guy, but he's not a stinky homeless guy, right? So he's in the car, and he's going to Penny Hot Springs. And I said, and we're talking about the valley, and he just came back from blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, the valley's really changed. And my boyfriend was crossing Highway 82 last month and was hit by a car. And he goes, Froggy?
Come on. No way.
And I said, oh, my God. I said, yes. He goes, everybody loved Froggy. And Scott was that guy,
Yeah.
But even the homeless guy knew him. So it gets better, though. So we're driving along, and now we're fast friends, right? And we're talking, and he's telling me about his kids. And I realize I don't know his name. I said, what's your name? He goes, Scott.
No, it's not Scott. It was the Scott?
Scott Adams. No, it was
a different Scott.
It was the homeless Scott, but
different Scott.
So my Scott tells to pick up the homeless guy, and the homeless guy is named Scott, and he knew Froggy.
Oh, wow. Got it. Of course, his name's Scott.
But it gets better because, so then we get to the hot springs, and I said, Scott loved hot water more than anything. Would you put some of his ashes in the hot springs for me? He goes, oh, I would love that so much. So I find some little something, and because I always have the ashes in the other room, and so we hug. I give him the ashes. That's the last time I saw him. And then fast forward 11 months. I'm at home, Clement Springs, ambulance, sirens out on the hood. He was crossing the same highway 11 months, and he was hit by a car and killed.
No.
But on some level, again, I've got now Scott Adams and David Drinker, both. They were close to the veil, and Scott could influence it's so extraordinary.
So let's go into that for a second. So, you work in hospice.
Yep.
I've had some other people on the show who've worked in hospice, and they're fascinating people to talk to because they are around death,
that
essentially.
Sacred space, yep.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
It's part of their job. So what they see, what they sense, what they feel, even if you walk in a skeptic, at a certain point, you just got to go, oh, man, there's got to be something else in there.
That's right.
I still always love that. The last 3 words that Steve Jobs said before he died?
I've heard this before, but I don't remember.
Wow, wow, wow. And then he passed.
Yeah.
That was the 3 words he said before he passed. So there's something that happens. And I've obviously spoken to a lot of psychic mediums who've been on the show, and they tell me what's going on. And there's like a 12-step, I've heard from our friend Julie Ryan, who there is a 12 stages of the days as they're coming in. Like certain things come in, certain relatives come in,
Got it,
the dogs come in. They start, like there's certain stages of things that are going to happen for them to
So
start
sort
seeing
of preparation for
as a
it. Got it.
if there is a chance for preparation, not as an
Yeah.
accident or anything, but as
Yeah.
if it's these kind of stages. So when you were working in hospice, what did you at this point when you started working in hospice, were you already in this other side of you've already
Yes.
opened up?
It was
already?
after Scott transitioned.
Okay,
Yep.
so it was definitely after that. So then what do you see when people are passing?
Well, it's not so much that. It's more there's this sort of numinous sense, the sort of pregnant place of there's a different potentiality, right? You know how like when, I don't know a lot about rockets, but you know like when a rocket is ready to go off, there's this of building up of energy. And it's almost as though, and I don't know at all what I'm talking about, but my sense of it, my visceral sense of it is this sort of numinous place of almost like the boosters that you need to push you to the next octave somehow. And there's just, like I said to you earlier, there's no lie in that space. I love that space because the BS is sort of set aside.
It's gone.
You know?
There's no nuance.
No, no. And so there's a beauty in that because you're not worried about your hair or your clothes or your mortgage or, it's all gone. And so there's a beauty in that space that is sacred, and to be able to walk with people and to be trusted to walk with people to that place. Like I had one woman say to me, why isn't anybody talking about dying? Like her family didn't want to talk about it. And that's all she wanted to talk about. Like, let's talk about this place I'm going. And so she could talk to me about it, but none of her family had the sort of bandwidth to be in that sacred space.
It's tough. I get it.
No, I get it too. But if you could give anyone a gift of a person who's ready to make that leap, don't have that be the elephant in the room.
No, you should absolutely be open to whatever that person wants to talk about in that sense, even if it might be a little uncomfortable for you because it's a gift that you're giving them. It's a huge gift that you're giving them.
Yeah.
When you're saying that as someone's getting closer to the end or the exit point, that the veil starts to thin, that is something that I've experienced that from, not because I almost died, but my grandparents would say things before they were going to die.
Yeah. But this is one of those things I really wanted to talk to you about because there's this collective agreement, let's say, in the spiritual community. You hear this all the time. People say, the veil is thinning, as though it's this great wall of China between this world and the next, or between this octave and the next. That is not my experience at all.
Tell me.
My experience is that the veil is over our own eyes. We have to thin our own veil. It's not the Great Wall of China and Scott and my mom.
It's our Great Wall of China that we've created.
Exactly. And so some guy in a diner in Indiana named Bob, his veil isn't thinning.
Right.
Mine is because I'm doing the work or I'm in proximity to the magic that happens in that sacred space between this octave and the next. But we have the opportunity, and I don't hear people talking about this, we have the opportunity to thin our own veil. And so this really interesting thing happened. You know how sometimes what I call it is I know in my knower. You're like, you don't even know why, but you know in your knower that there's something there. So I attended some workshop, and it was near Halloween, and the medium, whatever, the person who was leading the workshop, was talking about, and it's Halloween, and the veil is getting thinner. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is such crap.
I hear a tone in your voice, Cheryl. I hear a
little judgment.
It's a little tone I hear.
And so, but I knew in my knower that it wasn't quite right, but I didn't have enough information. So I reached out to a friend of mine, another great story. I have 10 million great stories. And so she's a cultural anthropologist. So I said, okay, Ellen, what is it? Why is that they always say the veil is thinning at Halloween? She had the answer. She said, as cafeteria Catholics, she said, if the church says that one day a year you're allowed to talk to your dead loved ones, otherwise you're not, of course the veil is thinner because you're talking to them on Halloween. So the veil is thinner because you're talking to them, and the rest of the time not allowed to talk to dead people. So you're not going to have an experience of contact because for 364 days you're not allowed to talk to dead people.
Well, it's like the Day of the Dead.
Exactly.
The Day of the Dead, the Mexican holidays.
Yes.
Like that's the
That's
one
the
night
day.
where
Yes.
you go to and you can talk. And
the veil is thin because but if you will talk to them 365 days, you got access 365 days.
What's interesting about your proposal, your hypothesis, if you will.
Yes.
I just speak very scientifically.
Thank you.
Your hypothesis is that because a lot of people think that there is this giant veil around us at all times that is thinning. What is truly happening is that all of our veils are thinning a little bit more and more. Even people who don't know about it, don't care about it, don't even believe in it, they're starting to because as a collective of the planet, as human consciousness 100%. Is shifting,
yes, we
are evolving and we are shifting and we are becoming a little bit more.
It's a 4-minute mile,
right? It's exactly.
So if I thin my veil, you go, oh, even if it's subconsciously, your hat, soul, right? Mm-hmm. Next level, soul.
Yes.
Spirit only understands love.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit only utilizes light. And so if I am engaging with spirit and engaging with that light, it's a 4-minute mile to this soul over here
mm-hmm.
who maybe isn't thinning their veil, but by proximity, something happens, but it's still unique to each of us. And I think we have to do away with the Great Wall of China mm-hmm. mentality of the veil. I think it causes harm.
And I think that's a great, hopefully that gets out there because I think if everyone's empowered to believe and understand the truth that they are actually in control
yes.
of being able to communicate. Like I've had a friend of mine who came on, Stephen Simon, who has similar with his ex, excuse me, sorry, not his ex, his past loved one, sorry. Horrible mistake on my part, sorry. But Stephen has had after-death communications with his wife. They wrote a book together. They've done all this, and he's a big Hollywood producer. He did What Dreams May Come.
Yep. Oh, yes.
That beautiful movie.
Yep.
With Robin. And he, before then, I mean, obviously he was a little bit connected. He did Somewhere in Time.
Yes.
He did What Dreams May Come. So he was somewhat already on that path. But after she passed, he was able, the communication opened very easily for them. And it was hard for his family to understand and things like that. I have to ask you, what was it like coming out of the spiritual closet, not only to your colleagues, which I'm sure is a hell of a story, but you're also your family, your friends, and people who've known you forever? Because it doesn't sound like you were talking about any of this stuff back in the day.
No. Oh, my God. And remind me to tell you the Buckminster Fuller story.
Okay.
But my parents were Republican California hippies, if that makes any sense.
The picture's in my head right now. Right. Orange County?
Yeah, right. Northern California.
Oh, Northern California. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Haight-Ashbury. Yeah. So when I was 12, my dad loaded us all into the station wagon, and we went off to the local transcendental meditation. My Marine father.
Republican Marine.
Exactly.
Conservative Marine, like it. Yeah.
And so we go into this transcendental meditation. What the frick is meditation? I'm 12. I don't know anything about anything. And some guru whispers a mantra in my ear. What the hell's a mantra? I don't know what it is. But we were mandated by the Marine father. Every morning we have to get up, we got to run for a mile and come back and meditate and chant this mantra. And you're not supposed to tell the mantra. I still remember it amazingly. It was only 40 years later, I actually figured out what the heck a mantra is for. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's what that's about. It would have been helpful if somebody had given me the information at the time. But between that and then the EST training and all of those sort of, human potential stuff that was going on in California or everywhere, but in California in the 70s. So I certainly had, and Bucky Fuller was a friend of my family. So Bucky gave me what the heck's a tetrahedron? And why is it the most strong structure in the universe? So all these seeds were planted, but have you ever heard of serotiny? It's a ecological adaptation where, and you'll know as soon as I say it. So like the lodgepole pines have these pine cones, and the resin is so thick, the seeds are stuck in there until a fire The only way the seeds get released is that the temperature gets hot enough to melt the resin, so the seeds, and then the forest gets reseeded. So the fire of Scott's death, all these seeds that were planted when I was 12 and 13 and 16 years old sat in there. Bucky said things to me, I had no idea what that is. And then fast forward to my beloved is ejected into the next octave, and the fire of that, I wasn't a phoenix rising from the ashes, not at all. What I was all those little seeds end up in the ground, and then you get little green spouts of understanding. Mm-hmm. And so totally forgot the question, but the point is, the seeds were there, but it wasn't really a part of my day-to-day parlance, if you will. Mm-hmm. You know, it was.
This didn't come out of left field, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It didn't come out of left field.
And that I was not on a spiritual quest, just being honest. Mm-hmm. I went in search of Scott. It was a mono-focused, exclusionary pursuit. Does he still exist? Can I access him? And I think that all those seeds that were planted in my youth that sort of bore fruit gave me a spiritual scaffolding that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise.
So then what happened when you decided to come out of the closet?
So the interesting thing is with my children, I have 2 kids adopted from China. Thank God they don't have my skin or my feet.
Thanks for the details.
They don't have freckles. They can get a suntan, all these things. But my kids had come across the country to live with me. They met Scott 4 days later. He passed. Oh. So here they have their mom grieving for someone who isn't their dad.
Right.
And
they just met you, kind of, right?
Well, I mean, they didn't know what to do with me in that much pain.
Of course not.
What do you do?
Yeah.
And the thing that I wanted to make sure to say out loud, because I know that there are people within the sound of my voice that are going to be able to relate to this, and God bless Dr. Joe Dispenza for the perspective, because I was suffocating on my grief.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't know. I mean, I lose patients. I've lost family members, and I hate the word lost, but they've departed, mm-hmm. and I didn't know that was in me. But I've lost patients and loved ones and family members, and never the person I was in love with.
Sure.
That's the only thing I can think of that's worse is losing a child.
Correct.
And so I would get to go like automaton, you do your day job, you get the kids home from school, you make the dinner, you do the laundry, get them into bed, and then I would go up to my room and it's like the way Dr. Dispenza talks about it is you think a thought, mm-hmm. that thought triggers an emotion, that emotion sends a cascade of chemicals mm-hmm. through your body, and that makes you think another thought, which has you have another emotion, so it was like I was getting drunk on my grief. I call it grieferitas. I was just pouring tequila shots of grief over my central nervous system. Right. And I didn't know that at the time, but one of the docs I work with gave me a book by Dr. Joe called You Are the Placebo. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was in that book. I've never been an alcoholic of anything. Mm. But I thought, holy frick, I am a griefaholic. Mm-hmm. And a wise friend to me said, Cheryl, your grief is too loud. And if he was talking to you, you'd never hear him. And I went cold turkey on the grief shots. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, if I stop this, because I know you'll know what I'm talking about, but it's like in that pain, it felt like I was closer to him somehow.
Yeah. When you go through that kind of grief, it's something that your brain is doing to you on a conscious and subconscious level, that your brain is built there to keep you alive. It doesn't care about your feelings, doesn't care about your dreams, doesn't care about anything else. It cares about keeping you alive. That is a defense mechanism, I think, that it's using for you to deal with this grief, which is not true. You're not closer because of it. It's the opposite.
Exactly. And yet, how many times have you and I heard of the little old lady who's been grieving her husband for 20 years? Or people who are enraged about something. My boss fired me, whatever it is. we become addicted to those chemicals. And once I understood the A plus B equals C of it, the mechanism of action, I could stop. And that empowered me too. But so back to this, so what about the coming out and my kids my kids sort of watched this process of unfolding, and now they're at the point of interested. They were calling BS at like, oh, mom's, a little crazy.
Get the tequila.
Exactly. And so within my tribe of friends, I would say, I think that even though it wasn't my perspective, all those seeds that were planted when I was younger, people would say to me, well, you've always been that way. That wasn't really my experience of me.
Interesting.
But I think I've always been open, and I'm a pretty friendly, outgoing person, whatever. So it was easier as a transition with my friends. But then there's the people, and this is really important. You know how people will say, it's time to move on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, of course.
What the frick? 6 weeks after.
Well, I mean, Jesus, 6 weeks.
Scott's one of his best friends said, Cheryl, it's really time for you to move on. Like,
you should get out there again. Start dating.
What the heck are you talking about? So there's sort of two roads. There's the move on, and no judgment. It's just two choices. There's the move on people, and there's the move forward people. The move on people want to get past their grief and move on. Mm-hmm. But if I had the option to move forward with Scott versus move on without him, I was going to move forward with him. So this is great. You're going to love this. So one day in meditation, fast forward to where I'm able to connect with him. And so I say to Scott, okay, when you were here, we had a relationship. Now you're here all the time. What is this? What do we have? He says, we have a vibrationship.
Interesting.
I'm like, okay, but he knows I'm the left brain girl who needs the definition. What's that? Mm-hmm. And literally, stream of consciousness, he says, meaningful connectivity between two people on different vibrational octaves.
Interesting.
So all of a sudden, I now have, again, this scaffolding. I have a way to hold it. So we have this vibrationship. And so and I'm over-exaggerating to make the point, but we'll say any reasonable, rational person would say July 7th, 2017 is the last day Cheryl could have connection with Scott. Mm-hmm. Make a new memory, let's say. Mm-hmm. But every single time you get the butterfly, every single time the person sends you the random thing on Facebook, every single time something miraculous happens, that's not they're above a cloud somewhere and they've sent you a sign by carrier pigeon long distance across the universe. That's me and Scott, nobody else between us, no middleman. In real time, we're building our vibrationship and we're making new memories with him in that octave and me in this octave.
Has he explained to you how this is possible?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's an actual question. Like, I'm curious if he's actually, because since you're so left-brained, I'd imagine it's like, you might be asking the question like, can you explain this to me in a deeper level? Because I get everything you're saying, I completely understand. On a vibrational level, on a frequency level, we're at two different frequencies. Frequencies are changing constantly throughout your life. Sometimes you're at a high frequency, sometimes you're low, but the baseline is constantly, hopefully, changing as you live your life.
Yeah.
Like these masters on the wall here, their frequency went top floor, if you will, and they were able to maintain that no matter what.
Yeah.
So I get the frequency idea, but this idea of the other side connecting with us, and I understand the mediumship aspect of it. Like, hey, my grandma's here. Does she have a message for me? That I understand.
Yeah.
But this constant connection between a loved one at two different frequencies, and since you've brought this up, this vibrationship. Yep. That is a very unique thing. Is there any other details that he gave you that, because I kind of explained to us in our rudimentary materialistic third dimension world? So
I think that, and this is such a great story. So I didn't know anything about Suzanne Giesemann. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know anybody who knew a medium. But somebody said, oh, she's the greatest. You should reach out for her. Maybe you get a reading. And her wait list was 2 years long or something. Sure. And But I thought, you know what? I'll still be interested in 2 years. I typed the email, send it off, and they say it's going to be about 2 years. And 2 weeks later, she calls.
Okay.
And she says, I've had a cancellation. You're supposed to have a reading. Little did she know that Scott was conspiring behind the scenes to make this happen. And so I did like the acrobatics, which I'm sure people do. I made up an email address, and I made sure that there was no way she was going to be able to Google me, because what do I know? And she comes up with where he died and how he died, and that he used to live in France. He used to play semi-pro ball and all these things. And then she says to me at the beginning, don't hold out your hope for names. I don't really get names. I don't know why, but I don't get names. And she comes up with his name. So at the end, I said, okay, you clearly connected with him. I don't want to spend the rest of my life going to mediums. How do I connect with him? She said the one word I hoped she wouldn't say. Meditation.
Of course. Yeah.
And I said, and she goes, no. She said, think about it differently. Prayer is asking and thanking. Meditation is listening. Oh, all I have to do is listen for him. Mm-hmm. And so part of the mechanism of action, if you will, if I could give you an A plus B equals C to having a vibrationship, it's one, we have to let go of our addiction to certainty. And it's kind of like if, you meet your wife, you have to travel a road together to build trust and the ways that the hard times, and, it's a dynamic that builds the thing that you now have. Mm-hmm. And so I am building this vibrationship with Scott in exactly the same way. And that is, I show that I trust him by not being a brat if I don't get the, purple alligator when I asked him to send it or whatever,
Right.
And I'm trusting him and he's trusting me. It's still this back and forth. But here's the paradigm shift that I think, Alex, is so important. It's not the long distance message of I sent you the purple alligator or the butterfly. It's, what if heaven is a frequency rather than a place? Mm-hmm. And so if they're in the next room and they're only a whisper away, then the vibrationship represents that we are continuing to move forward together rather than onward without him. And it's through the back and forth. He's going to send a sign, I'm going to recognize it. But then the piece about meditation that is so important, and I want to say this to all the people who think they can't meditate. I am the N of one. I was not the 12 years old, got a mantra. I didn't have any access to whatever the big deal was about meditation. Mm-hmm. Suzanne gives me that gift. Just listen for him. And over time, you're going to tell the difference between your thoughts and thoughts that are given to you. But again, I can't help myself with the scientist piece of it. So I have an easy breakdown. Mm-hmm. So you have A plus B. Don't go crazy. This is a little bit of math. I don't do math in public usually, but A plus B equals C. Mm-hmm. A is the activity. That's the non-variable. That's meditation. Mm-hmm. You and I both know there's lots of different kinds of meditation.
Thousands.
Right?
Yeah.
B is your intention. Do you want to sit beside higher consciousness and not think thoughts? No. I want to connect with Scott. Very different intention. Mm-hmm. Your B drives C, the outcome. So I have a friend, he's been meditating every single day for 60 years. Okay. I thought if anybody knows anything about this, it's Tom Crum. So I go to Tom and I say, okay, did you ever have like weird experiences and spirit showing up? He goes, oh my God. He said, early on, I was sitting on the side of a mountain in Japan and I wake up and I open my eyes and there's this Native American man with a headdress. And he says, I didn't sign up to see spirits. I wanted to sit in bliss beside higher consciousness and not think thoughts. That's not what I wanted. So I realized that's where the A plus B equals C comes from. My intention with my meditation, which for me, to make it simpler and maybe less scary, my meditation is listening practice. Because every single time I sit, I'm listening for spirit. I want guidance from spirit. I want information from Scott. And so, Suzanne's guidance was always meditate with a notepad in your lap. And you have a thought. First, I tried doing it with my eyes closed, which was ridiculous. Just have a thought, open your eyes, write it down, close your eyes again. And then you're writing over the thing you just wrote.
Actually did that back in the day.
Yeah. So open. But here's the beautiful thing, like a byproduct of that, is if you You're in your listening practice. You open your eyes, you write down a thought, you close your eyes again. What are you training yourself to do? You're training yourself to hold the state even with your eyes open. Open my eyes, I write it down. I haven't lost the signal, I go back in. So if you're willing to be a scientist of your own process, then you follow the breadcrumbs that they leave for you. And you were talking to, who's your friend, Robert Edward Grant?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So he was talking about the chakras, or the energy centers, right? Dr. Joe calls them the energy centers. If you think about it in terms of, okay, so there's all these words and chakras and blah, whatever. But if you think about a big house, if you had a big house, there's thermostats in all these different parts of the house, right?
Right.
And your heart is the boiler, and those energy centers are the thermostats. And you start turning up and down those thermostats, the heat's going on here and it's going off there, and it's all run by that boiler system. And the wiring maybe is our brain, let's say, if we're sticking with the metaphor. But my assertion is that Scott, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Amelia Earhart, my mom, whomever, they have a capacity to help upregulate our central nervous system, which makes us a better broadcaster because the radio station both sends out and receives information, right? Mm-hmm. And if the radio crashes to the floor, Barry Manilow doesn't die.
Right.
Because he wasn't in the radio in the first place. So that was part of me, was like, okay, how is it possible? And I know I'm all over the map, but how is it possible that Scott's consciousness could still exist if his body is dead? Because his body was clearly dead. I sat there in the funeral home with him.
But that's the radio that crashed.
Exactly. And he wasn't in the radio, and neither is Barry Manilow.
Or us.
Or whoever else. I don't know why I could never, there's like a Justin Bieber or Barry Manilow. But so the point being is, and I think that it's novel, how we learn to speak and interpret the language of angels is when we bump up against novel content and we don't back away. It's kind of like I'm not a big stretcher, but you're stretching and you think, I can't stretch anymore, and you could stretch a little bit more. Like, can we bump up against something that bucks the system of our present level of understanding and we don't back away? I believe that all those friends across the veil are working with us if we will show up. 5 minutes. Doesn't have to be 5 hours.
But let me ask you, Cheryl, everything you're talking about and breaking down and opening yourself up and all of these things, there is programming that we received as children, those first 7 years of our lives, that really basically put our operating system in place.
Yeah.
That we need to deprogram ourselves. As I've always said, your first 7 years is you get programmed. The next rest of your life, you're trying to unprogram or deprogram yourself from what you learned.
Yeah.
So that's all the biases, that's all the ideas, that's all the religion, or even just worldviews. All that stuff was really, really hardwired between those first 7 years. And then you pick up a bunch of stuff along the way from experiences and things like that. But so many of us have this heavy programming that can't even, if they're listening to this conversation, there's a crack in the armor. There's no question. If they're listening to this conversation, they've reached this point, there's obviously a crack in their armor and their programming, but it's still, and I'm sure you had the same problem, having to let go of that old paradigm, that old ideas, and open yourself up to these new the what ifs of what advice would you have someone who's really struggling, not only just with a loved one who's passed, but just as a general statement of understanding that they have the power within themselves to thin that veil. They have the power themselves to connect with source. They don't need a third party in order to do that. They have the power. The kingdom of heaven is within you. All that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. What advice do you have for them from someone who had to do it yourself?
Well, one, I will push back and say, what if? Because be careful of the mesmerizing bias of what you think you know.
That's such a great comment. Oh my God. Right? We all figured it out. Yeah. But we need that. Don't we need that, Cheryl?
Maybe.
No, hold on a second. So don't we need on a kind of evolutionary point of view, we need to understand on the brain needs to have rock solid things to hold on to. Like if I walk down to the river, Bob was eaten by a tiger last week. So if you go down the rivers, you gotta be careful with the river because that's where tigers are. Now, in that person's mom, let's call him Steve. Steve is like, rivers are bad. I can't go near Bob because Bob was eaten by that. But we both know that all rivers aren't all bad. But that is a bias. That is a program in their brain. So I get why the brain wants it.
Yes.
But it's not necessary all the time.
Yes.
So
let me break it down for you in curiosity, wonder, awe. And in the last 24 hours, this has been fleshed out in my mind, but the rudimentary construct is curiosity is the brain or is the mind, which is human. Mm-hmm. Wonder is the heart, which is divine. Awe is the soul, which is source. Mm-hmm. The scientist is curious. Curiosity has lots of questions, and we're going in search of answers. Mm-hmm. The mystic, and I want to talk to you about that, the mystic is a wanderer. And in wonder, there's only one question. I sat out in the car today and I thought, I wonder what's going to happen today. So the scientist who's curious, that's not a bad thing. And there's times when you are curious and you need to ask questions, you need to seek answers. Mm-hmm. But be very clear about the curiosity space. I want to seek out the wanderers. The wanderers are a different lot. It's kind of like you and me both being cancers, you know. I'm interested in wanderers because the wanderers have space for whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then awe is standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon and knowing there's no separation.
Knowing. That's a great word to use there. Knowing.
And it's different than knowledge.
Or believing.
Yes.
Knowing is very different than believing because believing is faith. And that's needed.
Yeah.
But knowing, it's just like,
yes.
There's not even a question. There's no movement.
But then even knowing is in the curiosity space. Mm-hmm. Gnowing is Gnostic knowing. It's experiential knowing. That's in the wonder space. Mm-hmm. And so it's really about understanding that because you were talking about Steve and the tiger. Yeah. So there is this mesmerizing bias of what we think we know, and we accumulate all this information as we're traveling down the path. But I had this question, and straight from Spirit to you, here you go. Here's the big fat question for today. So if this line on the desk is the Colorado River, and I don't know the answer totally, I'm curious, but so is the Colorado River the truth? Like, it exists. We know that's true.
I mean, we can touch it, we can feel it, we can see it.
So,
all our senses tell us that is real.
That's real. Okay. So if we start in the never summer region, the headwaters of the Colorado River, northwest Colorado, and it goes all the way 1,450 miles down to the Gulf of California in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And this is the question I don't exactly know the answer to, but what is the river? Is the river the water? Is the river the real estate? Is it the banks? Is it the riverbed? You know, to me, if I take this glass and I scoop it up, is that the Colorado River? That's some of the river, right? We think the water is the river, right? Mm-hmm.
But without the other stuff, it's not a river. It's just water.
Yeah. So, and it's like, but if I scoop up some, is that the river? But here's the amazing epiphany I had last night. If the water is the truth, because here's the thing, what I think about is truth is a river, not a road, right? Mm-hmm. So every point along that 1,450 miles, each point is a truth about that river. Mm-hmm. Not the truth, but it is a truth. Now, if you dock your boat and say, I believe in this part of the river, this is the truth, and all the rest is not relevant or not true because this is the truth of the river.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, Alex, it's so amazing. The Colorado River has been running for millennia, it's always new water. Like there's no water that got down to Mexico and said, I'm going to go back up to the headwaters and start again. It's all new water. That's amazing to me, because the point is, that's the way we can say that, my programming says that the river is bad and there's going to be a tiger. But if I can be a mystic and I can trust in the river and know that it's always new water flowing through me, my understanding, I don't think it has to be, in answer to your question, I know that there are people with real trauma. I've met them. And yet, what if someone could reach across the veil and touch you? It's kind of like, you see those, remember that when we were kids and they open up the brain and they poke it with the thing and this twitches or that twitches. What if spirit can just, and it's, be careful of the mesmerizing bias of what you think you know. What if, because as soon as we say this is real, I think for me, I've backed away from absolutes, because any point on the river being the truth means I've gotten out of the river. And there is something, there's the truth and there's a truth. And to me, I'm mixing metaphors here, but a truth is like a rung on a ladder. And if I want to ascend, I got to go to another truth and another truth and another truth, just like sailing down that river. And so for me, my daily scolding to myself is, be careful of the mesmerizing bias of what you think you know, because there's more information and it might be more available than we think. And that's part of why that book was written. And that's, this interview is not my interview and that book is not my book. Spirit has something to say. And so one day, I know I said this to you before we started today, John F. Kennedy shows up and says, we're here and we want to help and nobody's asking and you need to let them know.
That's fun.
But
hold on a second. Let's just unwrap that for a second here. So when JFK shows up, how do you know it's him? Do you physically see them, or is it just a voice in your head? That's the main first question. Secondly, what do you do? Because look, I get that Scott's there. I'm on board. On board that you're talking to your beloved on the other side. You have communications every day. You're moving together vibrationally. Vibrationship. I'm all about all of that.
Yeah.
But when JFK shows up, what do you say to yourself? Like, okay, am I losing it here? And by the way, in this book, Mystic Richness, JFK is not the only dude or person who shows up from history to kind of drop you a letter to humanity. So how do you psychologically process? I mean, because you're already primed. You're talking to Scott.
Yep.
I get that.
Yep.
But now we're at a whole other... Now we're in the realm of like, what were you in the past life? Oh, Genghis Khan. Or I was obviously Cleopatra.
Exactly.
Or someone famous or
Yeah.
Napoleon or something like that.
Yeah.
So now we're playing in that world. So what did you say when this first showed? Is he the first one? He was the...
No.
Oh, no. He wasn't the gateway drug, if you will?
No, exactly. Right.
Who was your gateway?
Well, I used to work for John Denver back in the day, so John really showed up, but it was like Scott, and then John was the second one.
But you knew John.
I knew John, yes.
But JFK, I'm assuming you didn't have a relationship with.
No, I didn't have a relationship with.
Okay, sorry, so JFK shows up.
But it's really, the backstory that I want to say is, and the reason why you'll see in the book, I reference cross-veil communication supplanting the idea of mediumship. And part of the reason for that is our words cast spells.
Oh, yeah.
Be careful of the language. If I say to someone, I love you, that casts a different spell than if I say, I hate you.
When you say cast a spell, because a lot of people will be thinking it's like, we're getting into witchcraft. No. When you're saying spell, it's kind of like the energy that you're putting out.
That's right.
Because all those words have an energy.
100%.
If I say hate you and I say love you, very different energy, very different frequency.
100%.
Kind of like that water experiment by the Japanese scientist.
Exactly. Yes, the tears of...
Yeah.
And in the book, I explain the history of, because why do we call it, how do you spell your name? It's still the word spell. Like, why is that? So anyway, I go into that so that it takes away the abracadabra mystic part of it. we are spelling things. The incantation. Like here, I'm squirrel. I'm diverging only to a word. Like, what's the only magic spell that you know? You know one. We all know it from when we were growing up.
Well, please,
magicians say
please.
it.
Oh, thank you. Oh, abracadabra.
Exactly.
Please is the magic word I was always told to talk about. I was very polite. I was very polite, Cheryl. I don't know about you.
Good manners. But abracadabra is misunderstood because here's the thing. It goes all the way back to Aramaic. And there's what do you call that? An inverted triangle with the point down, and there says abracadabra on the medallion. I will create as I speak.
That's what that is?
That's what that means.
Okay.
And if you invert it the other way, it is I will destroy as I speak.
Wow.
But who knew that? Right. How do I know? I looked it up. But so the point being, the reason why I use cross-veil communication versus mediumship is because if I say I'm a medium, you, whoever you are, automatically already have a box for that, and you put me in it.
Right. You see dead people.
Exactly. And you already have a category, and we do that for a time-saving device as humans.
Of course.
But it's not the whole truth. Mediumship is one way. Your grandma talks to me, and I give you the message. Cross-veil communication is two ways. It's back and forth. It's a telephone versus a
speaker.
Exactly. And so I think that it's important to make that distinction because here's the thing, though. If you have a grandma in spirit, you have a grandpa in spirit, too. If you go to a medium and you want information from your grandma and grandpa, the medium will give you information. I could talk to Scott, to my mom, to my brother, but if we say continuity of consciousness is real, then we have to, as responsible scientists, extrapolate that if this is true, then that should also be true. So if I can talk to Scott, I should be able to talk to John F. Kennedy or Nikola Tesla or Cleopatra.
Sure.
And that makes logical sense. And at some point, Suzanne said to me, you can talk to anybody. Like, all righty then. Who do I want to talk to? And so I just started experimenting, and my sort of adage is, if I don't have to get on the news and prove it to anybody, then I'm just going to take the ride. Let's see what happens. And so I started reaching out, in my meditation every day, and sometimes I would ask someone, and other times they would just show up, like Alexander the Great. Haven't thought about him probably 5 times in my whole life. He just shows up. And so my question, and I'll answer the question about how do I recognize them, but when they step in, I have one question. Besides, hey, thanks for stopping by. Do you have a gift of wisdom for me? Because at some point, I know that continuity of consciousness is real. I'm at the point on my journey where I want the wisdom more than I want the evidence. The evidence is fun, but the evidence is a little bit of a parlor trick. I mean, it's to prove that they still exist. I want the wisdom. And sometimes you get the wisdom and they're testing you. Okay, are you a good student? Are you going to be able to find your way to the evidence through the wisdom that I gave you? And so when they step in, it's sort of multimodal for me. Sometimes I see them in my mind's eye. But I think that, and I don't know what this is called, so I'm making it up. I swear that there's just some, like back in the 1800s, you would go to visit somebody like Jane Austen, and you leave your calling card. It's like they show their spiritual calling card. It's me. This is who I am. If the butler answers the door, oh, hello. So it's like you just know in your knower.
Are you hearing a voice? Is it in your own mind's voice, or you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Sometimes you're hearing like.
And I wonder, is that like my thermostats? Am I recalibrate? I don't know why. Sometimes it's his voice and sometimes it's my voice, but it's still, if you think about it, and this is an important point. I can think a thought, and don't let me forget, we want to talk about imagination because that's huge. But I can think a thought, and I think we have not been taught to believe that someone can give us a thought. Like, how many times have we heard, it was a dark and stormy night, and the woman, she's driving down the road, and she's just got to get home, and she's supposed to turn left to get home, and the voice says, go right, and she turns right, and if she had turned left, the bridge is out, and the car would have been washed away.
Sure.
Someone can impress upon you a thought.
Well, I think everyone's experienced that at one point or another in their life, whether you call it your gut instinct.
Yes.
Whether you call it an actual literal voice in your head.
Yes.
It's like, I don't understand why I turned left. I feel like when it's more like mortal danger, you listen a lot more.
Yes, because your left brain is out of the way.
It's louder. It's a lot louder.
Yeah, and yet we need to, if we start to understand that, so like if I say, like just as an example, close your eyes.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And hold out your hand. And just ask your grandpa to put something in it. First thing, what do you see?
A little truck, like a little toy truck.
Perfect. Okay, so you can open your eyes. So did you make that up or did your grandpa give it to you? We don't know.
No.
But it was so fast. That's why I tell someone to put it in your hand. If you're going, they're taking too long and they're overthinking it, right? So I did this reading, and hold on to that little truck, but you can set it right here. I was doing a reading for a woman, and before we got on to do the reading, her dad had me pick a book off the shelf by Professor Randy Pausch. I don't know if you know him, The Last Lecture, amazing. And on the book, there's a picture of him, he's in spirit, and his kids. And there's it looks like there's a string tied around the book. It's a photograph, but, and then there's a paper clip on the string. And he just tells me to take the book off the shelf. And so this woman and I get on the phone and she wants to hear from her dad. Okay. And so blah, blah, blah. And dad comes through and again, I'm listening for guidance. Okay, how do you want this to go? I try as much as I can to give the reins to spirit rather than, okay, what did you do in life? And what was your favorite pair of golf pants? Whatever. So I said, okay, just close your eyes and hold out your hand and ask your dad to put something in your hand. And she's like, nothing. I mean, I know she's overthinking it, right? And I said, don't overthink it. What was the first thing you put in your hand? She said, I don't like the first thing you put in my hand. I said, I know, but that was the thing. What was the thing? And she said, it's a paper clip. And the paper clip was on the book. And there was a whole message for him about the paper clip, but it ended up being evidential in that she didn't know that I pulled this book off for Professor Pausch. And do you know what I mean? Like there's so many more nuanced ways. We just want, okay, you tell me my grandmother's favorite food was strawberry shortcake with mustard on top. That's evidential, But the point is, we have this opportunity to go for every gift from spirit is more than one thing. If I give you a beautifully wrapped box with a beautiful bow and everything is just so, and you go, it's what I always wanted. Thank you so much. And you put it on the shelf. We're spending so much time not opening the boxes. The dragonfly means something, but if they send you 10,000 dragonflies, you should look it up every single time. Like, how do we build the vibrationship as we continue to engage? I have a friend and she said, my son, he was in spirit, stopped by and he gave me a deer and that's how he lets me know he's here. I said, well, did you look it up? And she says, I looked it up before. I said, Carla, it's today. It's a different deer. But so and this is an important piece. The deer, the dragonfly, the ladybug, 1111, 444.
Signs.
Well, but here's the point. If you think about it in terms of neural pathways, spirit will always take the path of least resistance. So the deer is a pathway. They're going to take the path versus bushwhacking through something that isn't. So, but the point is, they showed up. I'm here. Here's the deer. Take it. What's next? Why did you show up today? You came in the door you always come in. And what's the gift today? Do you know what I mean? Like there's a way to take it further, but it's that mesmerizing bias of what we think we know.
Cheryl, let me ask you, in the next 10 to 20 years, as we continue to evolve, do you believe that this kind of conversation will become a little bit more mainstream, where the point where people will openly talk about having communications with people on the other side or getting wisdom from people from the other side. I'm not saying it's going to be in the evening news, but very well might be. But it seems like these kind of conversations, these kind of abilities are opening up more and more. People are becoming more and more open to these ideas. Where do you think this is going?
If we go back to the fact that we can extrapolate that we have access to every point of consciousness that ever existed. Mm-hmm. And here's another slippery slope, Alex, is if we say reincarnation is what people generally think it is, which is I'm here, I go someplace else, and then I'm born again, and then I go someplace, then we're missing the point. If past, present, and future are all now,
right,
then it's all happening now.
Right.
And so think how much smarter Mr. Tesla is now than when he graduated from Earth School in 1943. Mm-hmm. He has new information, novel content to share with us. And so that's where this book came from, was Mr. Kennedy shows up and says, we're here and we want to help and nobody's asking and you need to let them know. And you know what movie I thought of, Mr. Movie Man?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Oh, God, with George Burns.
And John Denver.
Yeah.
And it was like, John Denver was like the produce guy, the assistant manager in the grocery store. And he's going, but why me? Why not me? They see us by our light, and it's still, I am a path of least resistance for some reason. Whatever happened and Scott died and all of these things unfolded, and I'm a crazy geek scientist who had to be a scientist of my own unfoldment to understand the mechanism of action, because I didn't want to feel better because I was making stuff up.
Right. Yeah. This was like some sort of psychosis that you were going through.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I had to at least, like the radio off the floor, the radio crashes, that doesn't mean the singer is dead. So I think in answer to your question, if we could for my intent is not to prove, but to propose. Mm-hmm. Not to convince, but to convey a possibility. What if we don't have to prove it on the evening news, what if I could reach out and I could ask, like, who's a historical figure that you're interested in? Gandhi. Okay. So I want you to fill your heart up with love for Gandhi. Like as he came in, Brother Gandhi, mm-hmm. and you fill your heart up with love for him, and I'm going to ask him for a gift for you. Mm-hmm. Now, in this instance, we're not asking him for evidence. There might be some that we'll find later, mm-hmm. but we want a gift of wisdom. Okay, so you fill your heart up with love with him, and I promise to you and to him as I won't edit. Whatever he gives me, I'll give you. Okay. I don't even know what you call this, but at a fancy dinner, I haven't been to very many fancy dinners, but there's like the carving knife, but there's like this crystal beautiful thing that is like the place you rest the knife so you don't get the table.
I also have not gone to that. I've been to some fine dining. I have not dealt with the crystal, but I've seen it in movies. So
yeah. You know what I'm talking about. And then you rest the knife on it so you don't get the tablecloth dirty, right?
Obviously. I mean, why would you? I mean, it's a tablecloth. It should be pristine. Yes.
And I don't know what that thing is called, but it almost looks like a dumbbell. Mm-hmm. A crystal dumbbell.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so he's giving you the crystal
dumbbell.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Father Gandhi. Uh-huh. So there's the gift. And in these quantum readings that I do, so at some point for 7 years I did evidential readings. I've got your grandmother here, whatever. But when I was writing the book, so January to September of this past year, I didn't really do readings because I have my 40-hour-a-week job and I'm trying to write this book.
Yeah, you're still working.
Yeah.
You're still working in your other job.
Yeah, 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so when I resumed doing readings in September, there was really the gift of this other kind of reading. The quantum reading is not for someone in deep grief. It's for someone who really does want the spiritual knowledge. And so you get to invite. You don't tell me in advance. You invite your guests, who are 8 to 10 people, and then we, Knights of the Round Table style, we gather at the table, and we go around the table, and each person gives you a something. Mm-hmm. The something, which we're going to get to his wisdom for you, is tied to their knowledge. But the something is also a spiritual doggy bag, because then you have the ability to afterwards say, okay, Father Gandhi, guide me to the message you want me to find. So you can do work later to get to deeper meaning. But let's ask him what the wisdom is for you about the spiritual crystal dumbbell. And everything is something, even if we don't figure it out. And it's been weeks and months later by the time I figure things out sometimes. But so what he's wanting to say to you about this, and there's a name for it, he says. We'll have to figure that out later. But he says the thing that he wants you to understand is that you wield, in this journey that you're on, you have the knife. And sometimes, you cut left, you cut right, it's dirty, you wipe it off. But he said, there is a time to lay it down. But he says, I want to give you a beautiful place to lay it down. This sword that you wield, this knife that you wield, as you sort of walk through your life, and sorry to say it this way, but his words, not mine, you cut through the shit, you're cutting stuff away. But he says, you got to wipe that BS off somewhere. And there might still be some left, but he says, you shouldn't have to go to sleep with that. With the way that you sort of walk through your life, and you gotta, but he said, and I don't know, the tablecloth, he liked your comment. It's like, yeah, heaven forbid you get the tablecloth dirty. But he said, the tablecloth is your consciousness. And you don't want that crappily crap on the tablecloth. He said, you just have this beautiful thing, whatever it's called, to rest that knife. Because he said, you're a soldier on the path. You're the chef. You're in this creative process. And he said, it matters, brother. It matters that you don't mar the surface. It is pristine white. And it's supposed to be that way, because if you can keep it clean, it's almost like it's always white, right? Mm-hmm. In those fancy restaurants, it's always white. He said, so that the littlest thing for your consciousness, the littlest thing, you can see it. Mm-hmm. You have the eyes, he says, you have the eyes of an eagle. Mm-hmm. The littlest breadcrumb, whatever it is, you can see it on that white tablecloth. So he said, it's imperative that you keep that space for yourself, your consciousness, clean. And this knife that you use to cut through mm-hmm. I'm giving you a beautiful place to put it. But really for him, it's sort of hand over heart, his bow to your willingness to continue to sort of bushwhack through the BS, mm-hmm. to not find the truth, but to continue to seek a truth. But at the end of the day, when it's time to lay it down, here's this beautiful thing. We'll find out what it's called.
Okay. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Again, what if? Is that him? Is it me? I don't know. But if we don't have to prove it on the evening news, then what if we have, here's the spiritual IPO, Alex. Mm-hmm. We have access to every point of consciousness that ever existed. And in the back of the book, there's a FAQ. And I was going to try to, because people ask me all the time, well, why would Princess Diana or Helen Keller want to talk to you, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting down to try to, figure out how to write an answer. And Jack Kennedy says, I got this. This needs to come from us. And his answer is so beautiful. And he says, you don't have to have known me in life. We have common interests. And the things that we were passionate about in life, we're still passionate about. And if we find someone who's passionate about it too, he said, isn't it a beautiful thing? We're all connected in this grand quantum field. And if I can share information with you and you're receptive to receiving it, then I get to live across the veil with you.
So Cheryl, I have to ask you, because now you've piqued my interest. I love this quantum reading, and you offered a quantum reading before. We just didn't have the time. We didn't have time. But while we're here, there's a couple of people I would love to talk to.
Oh, cool.
And if you don't mind.
No, I love it.
I'd love to hear
my favorite thing.
So I'd love to hear. So one is, everyone is not going to be surprised by this, Yogananda.
Okay.
Paramahansa Yogananda. Yep. And the second one is Walt Disney.
Ooh, nobody's ever asked about him. That's cool.
Yeah. So if you could.
You're willing? Is this okay?
If it's okay, I'd love to talk about it. Yeah. Not as much. I always say this, not as much for me, because it really doesn't, I know I'm, but it's more about what the work is, what we're doing, how to help more people. That's kind of my goals. Not like, where's the lottery ticket? Like, I don't care.
I get it.
I know what I mean? So I'd love to, if you don't mind.
No,
I think it'll be fun for the audience.
Yeah. So here, energetically, your contribution if you think about it, is sort of like you sort of squeeze, that's like pushing that cerebral spinal fluid up. So you're creating a toroidal field around you. I'm creating it around me. So let's go with Paramahansa and Yogananda first. And the way that I think about it, Alex, is if you were just sitting in your comfy chair and you hear a knock at the door, and you go and you open the door and it's Paramahansa Yogananda, and you say, hello, brother, and you give him, you embrace him, and it gives me goosebumps. You just, oh, come on in. That level of joy is 5 bars. Doubt doesn't hurt me, doesn't hurt him. It hurts our chances of making this strong connection, right?
Yeah,
but I say that mostly for the audiences.
Yeah, I don't think the 5-bar situation is going to be tough for me. So we should
So
be
you
okay.
embrace him in a bubble of love. I'm going to ask him for the gift. My promise to you and to him is I won't edit. Whatever
Sure.
he gives you, I'll give to me.
Same,
Okay?
close eyes. And
Yep. And I'm just going to ask him for the gift. I think that this exists, and sometimes I find that there ends up being these themes. But have you ever seen one of those super fantastical Swiss Army knives that has everything? And this one even has like a little compass on it. Okay, so does that exist? I mean, like, I think
sure
it does, right?
Yeah, I'm sure
but it's got the tweezers, and it's got the scissors.
It's a saw. And
Exactly,
all that.
and but he's wanting to make sure you know that it has a compass on it too. Even though it's small, it has a compass. And do you still have good eyes? Like he's saying you have good eyes. Like you don't.
I have good eyes. I need reading glasses, but generally speaking.
But he's like saying you're going to be able to see, even though it's a little compass, you're going to be able to.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's just see. So his gift to you is a newfangled, like it's all the bells and whistles is what he's saying, is this the Swiss Army knife. And you know how, and you and I have both seen the, sort of like you're showing it to me like Edward Scissorhands, you know, you open up the knife and you see all the scissors so you can see all of it. He wants to impress you with all the gifts he brought you. And he said, he says, okay, at Yogananda University, everyone gets one of these. And he said, you and I afterwards will have some work to do, because each one of these things is a point of awareness that he wants you to have. So like if it was me, I would go and look at what are all the things in the bells and whistles Swiss Army knife. But he said, now on the Swiss Army knife, it's your full name. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but I don't know what your full name is, but your full name. First name, middle name, last name. And he's talking about, there's something about your last name that nobody knows that you know. Like he's pointing to something about your last name, and he just wants you to know that he knows. Like there's almost like there's layers there. Like talk about the mesmerizing bias of what you think you know. He said there's more. And what he wants to say to you is you can't get through this life with just one tool. It doesn't do you any good to just have the blade.
Right.
You need the scissors and the tweezers and the toothpick, and you need all of these pieces. And what he's wanting to say to you in regards to your query about how is it, oh, this is so cool. So he's basically, you know, like when you were giving me the tour around the studio and the other things that are happening here, he said, you're building your very own next level soul Swiss Army knife. And so he wants you to know that you're not wrong in the multimodal pursuit. And that he said is essentially, you know, there's like that Linda Ronstadt, so something about still within the sound of your voice. He said, if you're going to reach the ears and the hearts of many, you need all of the tools. And so he said he knows that there is angst on your part to birth these various pieces of what it is you're trying to build. But he said the only thing that you're forgetting, like you have all the tools, maybe you know how to use something. Have you ever had that, like where it has got like the little fingernaily thing so that you can pull it out, right? And then if it's not well oiled, it won't pull out. He said, we're the oil.
Interesting.
So don't forget to, because he said, you're such a tenacious, I got this. I got this. Ask for help. He said, what you can build alone is different than what we can build with you. So he's showing you that you have all the tools. But these tools will be better employed who are you going to ask to step in and help from across the veil? And do you have a Grandpa Ferrari? You must.
I have a grandpa, yes.
And is that Grandpa in spirit?
Yes.
Okay, because he's been with me for like the last 2 days. Your grandpa has been, woohoo! And so, but he's just making, I don't know why that keeps coming up. But anyway, he wants you to know that you have the tools, but you need to ask for help. Because what you're trying to build, it's like that Field of Dreams thing. If you build it, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, literally, this is that, by the way. I built this and I had no idea if anyone was going to show up.
wow.
We're going to build this and hopefully somebody's going to pop in because we're not in LA. We're not in New York. We're not in these big centers.
Yeah, but
We're
you
in
don't
Austin.
need to be anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
we're in Austin. So we're like, oh, I wonder if anyone. So this was absolutely, if you build it, they will come.
And that's what he wants to say to you is plow down the corn.
Mm-hmm.
Trust, plow down the corn. The people are at the edge of the field calling you insane. Plow down the corn. The lunatic, he's plowing down his corn.
What a great movie.
Yeah, right. So he said, we will step in to help you, and throngs that you cannot imagine from the other side. But it's like if you do the Marlboro Man thing where I got my Swiss Army knife and I got my compass and I think I know where I'm going. He said, it will be so much better if you ask for us to step in and help you with, because he's making me feel like even the things that maybe you have revealed to the world, you in your back pocket have other ideas that you haven't even talked about yet. And that's part of the tools that he's acknowledging that you have all of them in the container of you and your lovely wife. But if you don't ask for help, it will not be this. It's like those ball players needed to show up.
Mm-hmm. Of course, without the ball players, that field's
you
just
got
a
nothing.
field.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So invite the ball players.
It's just a field, not a field of dreams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So ask for more help, essentially, from them. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. That's good. And then,
okay.
all right.
Who was the other?
Walt Disney.
Oh, Walt Disney. Okay, good. And please don't let me forget to talk about imagination, because it's the number one challenge of people trying to, did I just make it up in my head?
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So we can't forget that. Walt Disney, okay. So you're wrapping him in a bubble of love, and I promise. Okay, so I see the gift, but I'm just seeing if he's going to elaborate about it. Okay, so he's giving, so great. He's giving you the gift of a broom.
Okay. Okay.
And it's one of those things where we just have to trust. Did I make that up? Did he give it to me? But it's really lovely because, it's back to that mesmerizing bias of what you think you know. Mm-hmm. So he's giving you this broom, and it's, the funny thing is he's saying it's a very manly broom, like he's giving you the manly broom, not the feminine broom. Yeah. So he's giving you this really sort of sturdy handled broom. And I don't know if you're a connoisseur of brooms, but...
Not so much.
But you know how you can sweep with those stupid brooms that are like this, and you push them and the bristles don't even move? Like, it's good for like some things, but it's not one of those brooms. It's like a regular
old school
kind of broom.
A witch broom.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank you. That was exactly the point.
Yeah.
And so the point is, when you need to sweep, there's sense just like with the knife, right? There's stuff that you're going to need to just sweep away. And you want to have the proper tool. If you have to push it with your hands, it's way worse. Mm. But he said, if you think about the witch broom, like if all you know is this broom is good for sweeping away the stuff that doesn't belong. Mm. He says, you're going to need that where you're going. You're going to need that. But he said, if all of a sudden a witch comes in and she could fly that broom, what if? Like like he's giving you that so that, like, what's the spiritual, if I was doing a quantum reading for you and I was at home, I have my books and I have, and then I'm looking up things on the computer. There's all kinds of tools that I use to enhance our understanding in real time. And they're saying, like, guide me to the message you want me to find. So it's much more interactive, but without my tools, what's the spiritual significance of a broom? Is there any image that exists out there in the universe of Walt Disney and a broom? Like there's, again, we can end up with evidence that in real time we would be able to
Sure.
to be able to see it. But he said the broom is the perfect example of, you see I love that too, the sort of animated film, you see the witch flying off into but there's more than one purpose for a broom. So he says, I'm giving you a tool that everybody says this is what you use it for. And I want you to hold sacred space for that there's something else. You know, you could poke a bear with it. Your witch could fly off in it. Like, how do we continue to expand our field of awareness to see that it's so mesmerizing? We know what that is. Whatever it is, in this instance, it's the broom. But he says, I'm giving it to you like a mantra. Walt Disney and the broom becomes a mantra, and something else is possible, but not if all you see is a broom. And he said, that's what we do, though, all the time. Spirit will give you something that it's just another deer. It's just another dragonfly. So now you have a gift he says, I'm not going to give you something that you can predict. I'm going to give you something you can't predict with a homework assignment attached. And so it's his gift to you of, God knows we need dual purpose tools. And you need to be able to sweep away the stuff and the people and the pains in the butt that exist in our lives. Just sweep it away. And he said, there is something he said, in your brain, you tend to hold on to things. You tend to, the mental machinations in your brain tend to exhaust you. And so he said, you could use this broom inside your brain too, not just in your world around you. But it's a magical broom. And isn't there a broom in that movie? The famous Mickey.
Of course, it's Fantasia.
Fantasia, exactly. There's, yeah, there you go.
All the brooms had like buckets of water.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that.
I hadn't either until this second.
I haven't seen Fantasia in forever.
Me either.
Yeah.
So it's like, he said, think about it that way. I've given you a magic broom. It'll work in your head. It'll work in your space. And where might we be able to go if you and I, meaning you and he, fly off together on this broom? Because he said, if you had to walk from here to New York, if you could take a mule, if you could take a Maserati, what if we could take the broom? Like, the sense is he's wanting to speed up your process for you, but you're going to have to make room for another possibility in order for him to speed up the process for you.
And when you say he would speed up the process, he's one of the helpers on the other
Absolutely,
side.
100%.
I have to open myself up to ideas that this is possible to, like, yeah, I could walk, yeah, I could take a Maserati, but there's a third option that I'm not opening myself up to.
100%.
Which is it's something that the audience can take as well. There's always opening yourself up to other possibilities.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you an example. So, like, let's say this is a book by, give me a dead person who wrote a book.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay. So if I read the Edgar Allan Poe book myself, that's one level of receiving of information. But if I say, hey, Al, scooch in here beside me. Will you sit with me while I read your book and help me to glean information? Anytime I'm reading a book with someone in spirit, I always invite them to sit with me. Why wouldn't I?
But you're opening yourself up to the possibility that could be a possibility.
Exactly. And that's what Mr. Disney is talking about.
Interesting. Okay. So and I think this is a lesson that people listening can understand, is to open yourself up to the what ifs of the world.
Yes.
To the possibilities of this. It doesn't hurt anybody for the what if.
Yeah.
What? Sure. Let's have Gandhi sit down next to us and watch the Gandhi movie.
Exactly.
Let's see. Why not? You know? Let's have Paramahansa Yogananda sit next to us while we read Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yes.
And see what comes up, or one of the Beatles while they listen to the music, while you listen to your music, or so on and so forth. It's the what ifs. And I want to, first of all, thank you for those two gifts.
You're welcome.
Those are beautiful. Welcome. I can keep doing that for a while.
It's so fun.
It's so much fun. You're like, okay, so what is, but the one thing you said earlier, and I wanted to kind of go back to.
And imagination and Michelangelo, don't forget those.
We're going to get to that was the next one after this. But this is a problem I struggled with for a long time. I still struggle with it because of what society has kind of programmed into us, is the worthiness of these things happening to you. Like what you went through, like, why am I having this gift?
Yeah.
why not you?
Exactly.
And the why not you is a very powerful statement, because when I started on this journey, I was, why? Like, why would anyone listen to a filmmaker about spirituality? I've never been in this space. It makes no sense. I didn't die and come back to life. I didn't connect with another person on the soul on the other side. There was no reasoning for this. And I had to really come to grips. It stopped me for about 6 months, 6 to 8 months. I moved forward, but just in molasses. It was just like kind of thing till I finally unreleased the shackles of the weight that I was carrying. And then I just like, all right, let's just go. And it took off. And what if this is, why not?
Yeah.
Why not me?
Yeah.
Why not this?
Exactly.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that worthiness?
Yeah.
Because we've been kind of beaten down by society. I have to say, depending on the culture and the country that you're living in, or the religion that you're in, that you're not worthy, that you don't have the power, that why would anything special happen to you? That kind of programming is very difficult to come out of. It's probably one of the most difficult to break, the self-belief of not only of yourself, but what is potential for you. And that's what holds a lot of us back. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, first of all, with your own self, be careful of the spells you cast, the words you say. It's hard, it's impossible, it's
tough to make money.
Drama. All those things, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And when the lens changes, shift your focus, change your aperture, something else becomes possible. So it's first, I believe it's possible. That's like, we have to get to that point. Okay, it exists. And then we have to believe it's possible for us. And my overarching statement is it's our birthright. If we're cells in the body of God, the quantum field, the universe, and I'm just a point on a node of Indra's net, I'm connected to everything. And they've proven through the Casimir effect that this space between you and me is not empty, it's full. So we know that it's full, just like the fish and the dolphins don't know. Maybe the dolphins are smarter, but the cod doesn't know, the grouper doesn't know that the water's there. We're not conscious in our day-to-day life that this space is full. And so we're worthy by the nature of the fact that we exist. And so, one, believe that it exists. Two, believe that it's possible for me, not somebody else. And then we just got to, what is that? I forget who says it, but it's like the path is made by walking. There is no path. The path is made by walking, child. So what if I fall, but what if you fly? And so what if I want to ask Princess Diana or Abraham Lincoln? I can't even tell you how many times they've given me the thing, just me, myself, and I. Do you have a gift of wisdom for me? They give me something. And that something ends up, like the other day I did a quantum reading for somebody and she wanted to hear from Nikola Tesla and the gift was a gopher.
Interesting.
What are the chances that there's any connection between Nikola Tesla and a gopher? But sure enough, I'm listening, put it in. So Nikola Tesla and a gopher, and the Nikola Tesla tower, and they're having issues with gophers chewing up underneath the ground, and the thing is threatening to fall.
What I find fascinating about your process and your readings is that the messages that come through, there is an item. It's literally a gift. Yes. Like someone is handing you a gift, and then that gift is associated with the message.
Yes.
Which is unique. I haven't really seen that in people doing readings, because normally it's a message.
Exactly.
It's usually it's a message I have for you. Don't marry that guy, move to New York, take that job, quit that thing, divorce that person. Those are the messages. But these are really kind of nuggets of wisdom, because all three of the people that you brought in left me with very visual gifts in my head now.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I got the knife, the crystal dumbbell. I've got the Swiss Army knife, but they're the oil. Okay, I got that. And then the broom with Disney.
And you could fly off somewhere.
And I could fly off somewhere, but I could also clean off the crap on the floor.
Exactly. Yes.
So there's he goes, but you have to understand that you open up the possibility that you can fly off.
Yes.
If you do that, I'm going to help you fly.
Yes.
As opposed to keeping, it's very similar to what I was just saying earlier. It's like when I started, I was walking in molasses. I was still walking.
Oh, interesting.
I was still walking on the path of starting the show and going down the path, but I was throwing the molasses on the floor, throwing weights on my back, slowing myself down. Only when I released myself and said, why not me? I'm going to take the jump. That's when all of that was broken free and I was able to fly.
Yes.
And just go.
Yeah.
And then the show did what it's been doing.
But if you stand on the other side of the veil, like so let's say you and I get afforded an all expense paid trip to the other side, but we don't have to stay there. It's okay, wife. He's coming back.
That would be an NDE. Yes.
Yeah. So
but you didn't die. But you didn't have to die. Yes.
Exactly. We stand there, and we have remote viewing from the spirit world here. Just like if I do remote viewing, I need a target, a coordinate, right? So even with, that's why when you give me your guest list of, okay, and I don't want to know in advance, you show up and these are my people. In real time, I've got the coordinates. So Princess Diana, Walt Disney, Paramahansa Yogananda, those are my remote viewing coordinates. So I can coordinate in, just like with remote viewing, it's exactly the same thing. So if we're standing on the other side of the veil, they're giving you the something so that they can anchor themselves to you. It's not just, here's my wisdom, blah, blah, blah. And then you maybe forget the wisdom. You're never going to forget the broom or the Swiss Army knife or the knifey thing. They anchor to you by giving you a gift, and they task you, whether you choose to do it or not, they task you with, homework. Can you go forward and do the homework? So it becomes a remote viewing target, and it becomes an anchor where they tie themselves to you through the thing. It's like if I leave here today, oh, I did. Which color do you like better?
I kind of like the green.
Okay. So if I give you this gift.
Oh, thank you.
See what it says?
That's awesome. I'll put it on.
Yeah. So if I give that to you, now I'm anchored to you in some way. I've given you a something, and it triggers a thought about me. So the broom, every time you're at somebody's house for dinner and you see the broom in the corner, you're going, oh, hey, Walt. You know, and it's a different mechanism of action whereby spirit is here. Heaven is a frequency, not a place. It's not real estate above a cloud somewhere. So they're right here and they want you to know. But if they give you a something, they give you the T-shirt. How many T-shirts do you have from some concert that you went to when you were 20 that you still have in your drawer and you're never going to get rid of?
You got to clean up. Got to clean that
Exactly.
stuff out. Before we get to Imagination of Michelangelo, I want you to explain to people, because a lot of people listening who, again, if they're gotten this far, there's a kink in the armor of the programming. There's no question about it. But a lot of times they're like, when I have near-death experiences on Jesus, Yeshua.
He's a good friend of mine.
Yes, he's a good friend of many. He shows up in a lot of near-death experiences. Not all. I mean, there's others as well that show up, but he's there a lot, and I call him the hardest working man in show business because he always shows up. I have to tell you the story. I'm sorry, guys, if you heard this before, but it's my favorite Jesus near-death experience story. There was an atheist who died, who did not believe in any religion, any afterlife, and he has this near-death experience. When he gets to the other side, Jesus is there waiting for him, but he's in a suit with his hair pulled back. Suit and tie and his hair pulled back. He's like, and he knew who Jesus was, but didn't believe in him. And he goes, Jesus, is that you? And he goes, well, yes. He goes, why are you dressed in a suit? And he goes, oh, it's the only way you would take me seriously. So the idea, a lot of people are like, well, how could Jesus be in so many places at the same time?
I have an answer to that.
That was my question. And the same thing goes for everybody that we've been talking about, Disney and Yogananda. I know what the answer is, but I want you to kind of tell everybody, or I believe I know what the answer is, tell everybody how these beings can be at 1,000 places or 1,000,000 places at the same time, because we're putting it in like,
linear human
like Jesus
terms.
wakes up in his house on the other side. He gets his coffee. He's like, oh, I've got 45 deaths today I got to deal with. All right. He gets in his car, does the commute. Yeah. That's how we think of it.
That's right. And that's our mechanism.
That's our mechanism. We have to picture it in that world. Yeah. But that's not the case. So can you explain it?
In an overly simplistic sense, you and I live in a dimension of infinite space. Space goes on to infinity. And if you and I want to walk out to my car, we have to move through space, and that takes time. That's where we get our sort of linearness. You know, we read left to right, the line of all of human history. So we're in a dimension of infinite space. My understanding is that this next octave is a dimension of infinite time. Time is absolute. It's not you're wasting time. It is all time, just like we're in all space. So if they are in infinite a dimension, let's say, of infinite time, then there's time for all of it because the substance of that place is time versus the substance of this place is space. So in that space, it doesn't matter if there's one prayer or 50 million prayers, there's only time. So it can all, but here's the thing, Alex, and this is so important. We have to let go of the mesmerizing bias of what we think we know because we're trying to take infinity and smush it into a tiny little box. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's a book written in 1916 by someone called Claude Bragdon, and it's called Four-Dimensional Vistas. And he's talking about the dimensions of space, and that the dimensions of space are our way of wrapping our head around infinity, right? So the example he gives is we put dimensionality on space so that we can understand it. But he said, us putting dimensions on space are like a climber cutting steps into the face of a cliff. They're important to the climber, they're not important to the cliff.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Right? So we add this dimensionality, these interpretations. They're all human interpretations so that we can wrap our heads around the infinite. But when they're available in a dimension of infinite space, they can not only deal with the 50 million prayer requests, they can be in multiple places at one time, which is not a part of our understanding or our construct of infinite space. We're in infinite space trying to understand infinite time.
Well, there's no time and space there.
Exactly.
It's different. Like,
it's absolute.
It's absolute. Like when I've talked to near-death experiencers, like they think of something and they're there.
Exactly.
It's instant.
Exactly.
Where here it's a little muddier and it takes a bit more.
Exactly. We still create by our thoughts, but it's a little muddier.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about imagination and Michelangelo. You were saying you wanted to bring that in.
So this is so great. And it's back to, if you're reading the book by the person in spirit, invite them to sit with you. It costs you nothing. It's a free ask. They don't show up, they don't show up.
They don't send you a bill in Venmo.
No, exactly. So in 2022, I decided to take my son to Italy.
As a beautiful place.
Food, architecture, art.
It's like walking around.
The olive oil.
You're walking around a museum. It's wonderful.
Exactly. And so have you been to the Accademia where David is in Florence?
Yes, I have.
Yes, okay.
By the way, that museum has no business holding onto the David. It was a complete chicken ranch. It was insanity when you got him. Like, how is this museum? It seems like it was completely disorganized. Yes. I'm sorry.
No,
but anyway,
it's true.
Yeah, and as you're walking down
and
the
you
path,
walk in and there he is.
And then there's the path of all the Michelangelos that pieces that he didn't finish.
Yes, exactly.
And he gets to the David. But when you get to the David, you're just like, I mean, it's awe-inspiring. Yeah, I have been there, yes.
So I have this, if I can connect with any point of consciousness that ever existed, why don't we travel through Italy and ask the great masters to travel with us?
Interesting.
Why not?
Sure,
it's free.
Not? Yeah.
And my declaration, my ask is, show me your presence in wondrous ways.
Okay.
Not send me the...
I need a purple alligator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So show me your presence in wondrous ways. So we're in Siena. I've been to Firenze, multiple times, but my son has never been to Italy. So we are in Siena, and I'm standing, it's like we're checking in, right? And we have this invitation out to the great masters, and there's somebody ahead of me at the desk, and there's this unbelievably movie star handsome man with 3 sons standing beside me. Buonasera, and I just
Buonasera.
a little bit of something. And so we start chatting, and he said, allow me to introduce you to my children. Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael. And he goes,
all the turtles.
Exactly.
All the turtles.
That's what he said. He said, I know. But he said, that's really their names. And I'm just thinking in my heart, thank you. Show me your presence in wondrous ways. What are the chances? So we have this lovely time in Siena, and then we go to Firenze, and we do the Uffizi, but we're in the Accademia. And in that whole Galleria, the only place to sit is that semicircular alcove behind David.
Yep, I was there. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So my friend who's traveling with us and my son, they're wandering around, taking pictures, whatever. I've been there 5 times, so I'm just going to sit here and look at David's ass.
Yes, my kids were like, what is that? They've never seen so much nudity in their life. They've never seen nudity. They're like, and I don't know if you remember, there is David penises on everywhere you walk on the street.
Sometimes it's just the penis.
It's just like hats and aprons and it's everywhere. And they're just like, oh my God, so many penises. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. In the gift shop, it's just
on the streets, in the gift shops, it's everywhere you see the penis.
Yeah, totally. Little did Michelangelo know.
Right.
So I'm sitting in that semicircle on the left-hand side, and there's one space beside me, and then the whole rest of the bench is full. And I'm sitting there, and I swear, Alex, there's some kind of, what I like to call it is like spiritual anesthesia, where something starts to unfold, and you get anesthetized to not overreact. Like it keeps you in the moment, in the mystical moment. So I'm sitting there, and is it my thought or is it a thought that's given to me? But I invite Michelangelo to come and sit with me. Got a spot. And it's not always this way, but my eyes are open like a movie, and I see him walking towards me. Now, I knew it wasn't objective, like I knew nobody else could see him, but it was as though it was objective. So he's walking and he's laughing. And he plops down like a guy would, plops down beside me, and he points to the woman with his thumb. He points to the woman beside him, and he goes, wouldn't she be amazed to know I was here? And he's just laughing. He's so tickled. And I said, oh, grazie mille, signore, molto gentile. Thank you so much. Michelangelo, il divino. Thank you so much.
So this is in your mind's eye.
In my mind's eye, but it looks to me in the moment like it's really happening. And I don't know how to explain it, except it looks, I'm seeing it like a movie, but with my eyes open. And that's where the spiritual anesthesia, I swear, somehow you get anesthetized to not freak out. And I don't know what that is, but it's almost like they just sprinkled a little fairy dust or something so that you just stay in that. And I know enough to know that if I start overanalyzing it, he'll disappear. Right? So, molto gentile, grazie mille. So anyway.
Are you talking to him?
This is me talking to him, not out loud.
In the mind.
Yeah,
okay, I had to ask.
Right, exactly.
She's talking to she thinks Michelangelo's next to her. No, this is all your mind.
Yes. All in my mind.
Okay.
And so here he sits, and again, you're sort of somebody really big in importance now sitting beside you, and I'm sort of trying to hurry it up. I said, well, what can you tell me about David that the world doesn't know? And he goes, Signora, I want you to know that and I don't have the math right for how many, is it the 1700s when they moved David there, but whatever it was, several hundred years, let's say. He said, no one has ever asked for me to come and sit with them. Like millions of visitors every year.
Yeah.
He said, you're the first one who's asked.
Wow.
And he just sort of, thank you. Oh. And I said, Herr Buonarroti, Signore Buonarroti. And he goes, no, just call me Mika. Okay. And I tell the story in the book, just call me Mika. And again, the temptation is to go, was he called Mika? Huh? But you can't go there. He'll disappear. Mm-hmm. So it's like I just stay in the moment. But it's like that. I'll look it up later, So I said, so can you tell us something about David that the world doesn't know? And he said, David was my son. Now, I don't know. And then again, it's the temptation. Did he have children? Didn't he have children? Some people say he's gay, whatever. He said, David was the son I never had. And he said, you know that story about carving away what doesn't belong to reveal? He said, I knew my son was in there. And it was my labor of love to bring him out into the world. So that when I died, just like with a father and their son, the son outlives the father. I knew that my son would outlive me. And it's like so beautiful. I'm just thinking, wow. And then he said, and my child, you need to understand the importance of self-chiseling.
Oof.
Chisel away the things that don't belong. And I'm just in this moment of like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then someone came by and bumped my leg and he was gone. The spell was broken. Right? And so, and then of course we get back to the hotel and no, he didn't have any children. And anyway, so the next day we go to Roma and we're checking into the hotel and it's hot and it's blah. But my son wanted a little something from the bodega, right? So there's a little tiny bodega next to the hotel. So we go in, and I'm mostly distracted. But it's like, okay, he wants this soda, and we get a couple of bottles of water. And I lived in Austria when I was 18. And there was this, I call it cow chocolate. There was this purple wrapper and a cow on it. And I go, oh, the cow chocolate. I almost never buy chocolate because I'm 61 years old and it makes me break out. But, oh, the cow chocolate. So I don't even pay anything attention. It's like, okay, we get everything and give her the money. We go up to the hotel room and I throw the bag onto the bed and the cow chocolate comes out of the bag. And the name of the chocolate, I'll tell you what it is, but he says, what if the L was silent? It's Milka. But if you silence the L, it's Mika. So great. I love ballpark Mika.
Wow.
So I'm on a first name basis with Il Divino. I can call him Mika.
That's amazing. What a great story.
So the thing about the imagination, and this I really hope is of service to people because we've been lied to. And I have a Substack and I wrote something recently called Reimagining the Imagination. So if anybody wants to read more about, because the number one struggle from newbie and veteran mediums alike is, did I just make that up in my head? It's the hardest hurdle that you have to get over. But we haven't been told the truth about our imagination. We have been led to believe that the imagination is a tool with one setting. You made it up. But think about this. You're going to love this. I love your brain. If physicists need math as an interpreter, spirit needs our imagination as an interpreter. It's the mechanism through, we couldn't understand physics if we didn't have math.
Right.
This is how we break it down so you can understand this thing. And so spirit, the way that I think of the imagination is like, do you have a blender in your kitchen? Okay. So in your house, you can use your blender and you can put it on fast, medium, or slow, and you can make a smoothie. I can come to your house and I could use your blender, various settings, to make a smoothie. So I have my tool called an imagination. I have a really great exercise. You're going to love this. And if we're out of time, I'm sorry. So the imagination is the blender. It's the tool. There's the imaginary setting. There's the imaginal setting. The imaginal setting, Henri Corbin wrote an article in like 1969 about mundus imaginalis. And he talks about, and Neville Goddard talks about this too, that in that imaginal space, non-local point, I'm oversimplifying, but non-local points of consciousness in that setting can use that pathway as a conveyance mechanism to give you information. How do you think a medium gets information? It's through the mechanism of their imagination. So did you just make it up in your head? Or did somebody give you something using the tool of the smoothie making tool of your imagination? They need the imagination because imagination is to intuition as talking is to singing.
Okay.
You couldn't sing if you couldn't talk, and you couldn't intuit if you didn't have an imagination. So it is the mechanism whereby spirit communicates with you. And it's just a muscle that we build. I could want to lose 50 pounds today, but I'm going to have to work out a little longer than that. I can go to the gym. I might want 6-pack abs. I'm going to have to work out a little bit. It's just a muscle where if you're just in the privacy of your own home, you can start to utilize, okay, just put, like the easiest thing you could do is just put something in my hand. So I'm going to do this. This is a great example for the audience. So I want to show you, Alex, how your imagination works, okay?
Okay.
So close your eyes and hold out your hand. And I don't need to know what it is, but just make up something. Make up something and tell me when you have something in your hand.
Yellow crayon.
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to know what it is because then it'll influence me.
I'll do another one.
Okay,
Sorry.
so just make up something and then tell me when you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and tell me what color it is.
Green.
Okay, so you can rest your arm. You can rest it, so you don't have to suspend it. But so you see the green thing in your hand, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you a number of different colors, and I just want you to say or okay or whatever when it changes, okay? So you see the green thing, right? Do you see the green thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, change it to blue.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to white.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to purple.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to gray.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to black.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to pink.
Mm-hmm.
Change it back to green.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can open your eyes. So that fluidity is you using the imaginary setting. Mm-hmm. You just see it changing. It's morphing. If it's a golf ball or whatever it is, you see it morphing to all these different colors, right? Mm-hmm. That's what your imagination feels like. Right. Very fluid, right? So now it has to be your grandpa. I'm sorry, it could have been Paramahansa Yogananda, but your grandpa is here. So what we want, and we know he gave you a truck. That truck is for later. We're going to ask. So what I want you to do, again, close your eyes. I want you to hear the knock at the door. Mm-hmm. You go to the door, you open the door. Grandpa, you feel the joy, and you embrace, and you bring him in. And I want you to imagine sitting on a couch, thigh to thigh. He's right beside you, okay? Mm-hmm. You feel him, he feels you. And now I want you to listen very carefully to these instructions. There is no right answer. I want you to be a scientist of this process. And I'm going to ask you some things, and I just want you to report. But the temptation as a human is to want to give the right answer. There's no right answer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to, don't tell me what it is, but I want you to ask your grandpa to give you something. And the very first thing is the thing. So just tell me when he's given you the thing.
Okay.
Okay. And you see the thing in your hand? Mm-hmm. And you see what color it is?
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's the instructions. I want you to look at that thing. I want you to feel the love that you have for your grandpa. And I want you to look at that thing. What color is it?
A silver.
Okay. Look at the silver thing, and I want you to try to change it to any other color and tell me what happens.
Yeah, I'm changing them.
Is it changing?
It is. It's tough.
You feel the resistance?
Yeah, I do.
That's what I wanted. You can open your eyes. That's the point, is your imagination was clickety, 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 clickety. This time you feel there's that little bit of tension, like...
It was a little more difficult
right?
to do.
I watched your face.
I couldn't. I mean, I got it.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit more of a struggle.
Exactly. And the reason why we do that exercise together is you can see how fast and smooth your imagination was. And now you've asked someone in spirit to give you something. The first time I did it, I forced it to change, and then it changed back.
Oh, yeah, I was doing that too.
Yeah.
It was not a fun...
Yeah.
No, that was fun.
You can feel the resistance.
Absolutely.
And what I wanted you to feel was that resistance. So it's not foolproof, but let's say you start doing the exercise where, okay, Paramahansa Yogananda, put something in my hand and I see a green olive. Mm-hmm. Try to change it. Is it really smooth? Maybe you made it up in your head. Is there that little bit of a tug? Maybe you didn't make it up. It's just a little test to understand this is what my imagination feels like. And
it's beautiful.
This is what feels like when spirit gives me something.
That's very helpful. That's very, very helpful. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I ask all my guests.
Yep.
And then I'm going to ask you for something special at the end.
Okay.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Oh, it's so different now than 7 years ago.
As it should be, because you're changing.
Yep. a fulfilled life for me at this point on my journey is to walk in the awareness of what it means to be a mystic. And what to me that means is to live in awareness of the divine in the world around me and to be of service because of that knowledge.
If you had a chance to go back in time and talk to little Cheryl, what advice would you give her?
Don't wait so long. Don't wait so long. I had glimmers throughout my journey and signs where you like, duh, you should have figured it out. But again, it's like what you said about, are you worthy? And there's whatever those things are that get in the way, be brave. Just freaking, what if I fall, but what if I fly?
What is love?
Love is bearing witness to the divine that's right in front of you all the time.
How do you define God or source?
When I was raised a Catholic, God was an old man on a cloud with a harp and a halo, right? And now I understand that the infinity of this quantum field that we reside in and that sea of infinite potential, like the unknown that Dr. Joe talks about, that's God. And how we collapse the wave function into this reality is by planting a seed in that sea of infinite potential. And that sounds so unpersonalized, but it's incredibly personal. It's the most intimate thing of all, where I can go out and become one with the absolute. And he sends me home with a spiritual doggy bag. He, she, they send me home with a spiritual doggy bag. So the infinite sea that I'm swimming in is God. And I get so, you know how with a fish or a dolphin or whatever, what part of the water touches the dolphin? Every part. That's what it feels like. It's like...
It's everything.
It's everything.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Service.
Being of service.
We lift as we climb. Because it doesn't do any good for me to learn these things and not share them. And if I can't, I'm not a fatalist. I would never take my own... If you ever hear that I took my own life, know that I was murdered. Because I would never do that. But if I can't go and be where Scott is now, then this vibrationship with him, this walking forward with him, and the mystical path that I get to be on because of reaching my hand across the veil to Helen Keller and John F. Kennedy and everybody else, that is...
powerful.
It's like nothing. I mean, that my life was incinerated in that fire. Whoever I was, that person died the day that Scott died.
Sure.
But somebody else was born, and holy smokes, it's so awesome.
And where can people find out more about you, pick up your book, Mystic Richness, and find out more about what you're doing in the world?
Mystic Richness is on Amazon and all the places where people can buy books. And my website is mysticrichnness.com.
Simple as
Easy
that.
peasy.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Now, normally at this point in the conversation, I ask for a parting message. But today I want to ask if you can bring someone in to give a parting message to everyone listening.
That's a great idea.
So the person I'm going to give you is an ascended master. His name is Babaji.
Oh, I know Babaji.
Yes. So I'd love to hear if Babaji has a message for the audience, for everyone listening to this conversation.
I know he does.
And do you need me to still give him love?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That's really helpful. So the gift is a begging bowl.
Okay.
So you're not begging
Of course,
for alms, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful begging bowl. And he says, you're standing outside the palace and the doors are open. And still you stand and beg. We're inviting you in. And still you beg for alms. When all of the riches of the palace are available to you. And he says, my child, you have the choice and the free will to stand and beg. He said, my brother St. Francis, found meaning in that pursuit. He gave up all of his worldly goods to beg and allow his fellow man to be in a place of generosity. He said there's value in that. But he said, you cannot stand outside the palace with all of the riches of the universe at your disposal, with your begging bowl, and tell a lie. He said, that's the part that's wrong. Mm-hmm. If you're going to beg, you beg because it's a choice. The palace and the riches contained therein are your birthright. And if you will stand here and insist to beg, for whatever your reasons might be, you do it with the full knowledge that that is your choice and you have the free will to make that choice. But the palace is available to you, and at any time you can come into the warmth of these hallowed halls, and all of the riches of the universe are at your disposal.
I'm glad I asked that question.
Thank you, brother.
Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on the show. It has been such a pleasure, such a powerful conversation. I can't wait for this to hit the airwaves because I think it's going to do a lot of good in the world. I appreciate you and everything you're doing to help awaken this planet, so thank you.
Can I tell you a little secret that I have withheld from you until now?
Uh-oh, go for it.
So my friend Sean, one of my mystic students, is in the other room, and all of my students, we got together on Saturday, and we decided to do an experiment.
Okay.
And your audience won't have the rest of the information, but I invited somewhere around 150 people from across the veil to be here today. Paramahansa Yogananda was one. Mm-hmm. And all of my students invited their tribe of people. So I think Sean said the list is somewhere around 500 people that were here for this reading today.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to give you the list of all the people when we get together afterwards for lunch. We have the list of all the people that were invited.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Listen, like I've always told people, Zoom is fantastic, but being in the room is different. This room has felt a lot of different energies since we've had people in, people channeling different beings and so on. The energy in the room today has been pretty amazing. And very, very interesting. I haven't had a feeling like this before in the room. So I look forward to our next conversation, Cheryl. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bless you, friend.
Bless you. Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.